answer your question better than that one because we saved that for the after hours Patreon.
He spent all this time lathering it up and I just removed it.
Yeah,
in one
exactly.
fell swoop.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Welcome to a brand new year, a new season. This is season 4 of the Board Game Gateway podcast. I am your host, Nima, and I am returning back to the studios once again with two of my lovely hosts. We have on my left, Mr. Leo.
Hello.
And on my right, I have Mr. Damien.
Hi.
If this is the first time that you are listening to the Board Game Gateway podcast, we are your entryway into the world of board gaming and fun times. And on tonight's episode, we're going to be having a chat about three different things. We're first of all going to be having a recap of our holiday period. We have been away for longer than we intended to, but my God, did we need it, I think. We are also going to have a chat then about one of the new games that's hit the shelves in the Mistborn deck building game based on Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn Saga. And we're also going to be having a chat then about our Gateway Game of the Week this week, which is Sonora. This is a very interesting flick and right game, and we'll explain that when we get to that point. But gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to the studios. We are recording this mid to late February. We said we would be back early February, but I think we all needed that long break. I think it was sorely needed. I
agree. Yeah. I feel like the time just flew.
Yeah.
Just here yesterday.
Yeah.
I know. It did feel like that a little bit, didn't it? And that time, over the time since we've stopped recording, since about mid-December, we have actually not stopped the gaming, or we've actually, and probably not taken it easy, I think. We've had, what did we have? We had Sydney's Family Game Day, which was our third game day now, which was our biggest and most successful one. And we also attended CanCon, Australia's largest tabletop and board gaming convention down in Canberra, our capital city here in Australia. But before we talk about CanCon, we did do Sydney's Family Game Day, which was our rebrand of B3GD, and we had over 140 people in through the doors. I think you said
143 is the official number.
143 was the official count of people through the door. So I think we all were not expecting it to be as big as it was, but it was a great day. Again, another very successful one, I think.
Yeah, it was massive. So, we've done it a few times now, and we had a pretty good feeling, or at least I had a pretty good feeling on how the day would run. And it ran reasonably well. But it was just the sheer amount of people that came through, which was amazing, by the way. It's certainly not a complaint. But the thing I absolutely loved was we had more families. We had, I believe it was almost twice as many family passes sold.
14 family passes compared to 7 in the last one.
And of these families, a majority of them were very, very new to gaming.
Yeah.
Which was even better. Personally, it was a truly fantastic day. I think I taught my first game within minutes of the doors opening.
Yes.
Yep.
I finished teaching my last game at about 10:20 p.m. So yeah, and our doors opened at 10 a.m. So it was a massive day. I can't remember exactly how many games I taught. I know it was in the teens. But look, it was brilliant. It was just a joy to just to see heaps of returning faces. So we have people there who have come to every single game day so far, which is amazing.
Yep.
We've also got people. So we've got people who have started to come since the last game day and such, and bring their kids along. It was a joy as always to teach sort of families bringing their kids and getting and sort of like twisting games, like hanging out with the kids, and then
kids
saying,
bringing their parents.
And then basically saying, hey,
along.
if you want to stick this to dad, just make sure you do this and stuff like that. So a really good example was when teaching That's Not a Hat, and basically saying, well, if you think your dad is lying, you basically say, well, you're lying, and then you flip it over and such, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna get dad. It's like, yeah. So that was fantastic. And we had people from all over Sydney once again.
Yeah.
So we had people from Well North, we had people from Shire, we had people from all over the place come out and hang out for the day. I think the last highlight was, unlike prior to game days where it gets to sort of mid-evening, and it kind of, the board games tend to stop and it becomes a lot more clock tower.
Mm-hmm.
That was still true. But again, I was still teaching games at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So, which was fantastic.
Which is hard to do when you've lost your voice about 5 hours previously.
Yes. Yes.
Leo, this was your first. So you've been involved with us since our last one, with with the game shelf, and you brought them. But this was the first time that you were behind the scenes, though, in helping organise it. So how did you find your first Sydney's Family Game Day and first game day with us?
Yeah, I mean, it was eye-opening how much work goes into it. So kudos to you guys for having done so many of these already. But I mean, the payoff is amazing. So the day was fantastic, so much fun. Was work, but good work, happy work. Walking around, teaching people, showing families that have, like you said, hardly ever touched a board game, like maybe a Monopoly here or a Risk there or something. Exposing them to all these amazing games and seeing them light up when they really got into it and enjoyed it. I think that was great. And just the amount of people that came in through the doors and the amount of stuff that we had going on, I think was great as well. Having the guys from Triangulate come and showcase their game design. I think it was a very popular table. People constantly going up to the guys there and learning how to play and you're learning about the game and all that. And then we had the D&D table, which also proved a big hit.
That was a brand new addition to our, the intro to D&D session run by our Dungeon Master, Ben Denmead. He's a local Dungeon Master here in Southwest Sydney. And I don't think everyone who attended his sessions were raving about it, including your daughter, who I believe was in one as well.
So my eldest daughter had an absolute blast. So Ben was already her DM while she was at high school, so she knew what she was coming into.
Yeah.
But she wasn't going to miss it because just how good Ben is and the sessions that he runs. But we also had Ethereal Grove set up a stall there. They were fantastic.
Yeah, they returned as well, Johnny as well.
Yeah, so fantastic. Johnny brought his dice towers again, and they were a hit. We actually got to use one of the dice towers on the D&D table.
Yeah.
Which definitely was a centerpiece. And also we had we had our fantastic volunteers. So James
and Stu,
Tina,
and
Georgie.
Yep.
You guys are all amazing.
I don't think I can stress enough how much work James and Stu actually did. James, all credit to him. He was, and Stu for that matter, they took shifts behind the games library for us when we got roped in. And so two of my highlights were just adding on to what you guys have said is, again, we, all five of us, including Ralph and Joel, who will be returning in podcasts coming up in the future, guys. Don't worry, they haven't gone anywhere.
They've been fired.
But all five of us were roped into game teaching all day. There were literally times where all five of us were out teaching games, and we had
which was the intent.
Which was the intent.
That's what we were there for. Like, that was our primary job on the day, was to make sure that everybody could pick up a game and get going as soon as possible.
And that comes back to your point, Leo, as well, which is when you said this is work, but good work. It's like, that is how we've always tried to proposition our game day, which is that we don't want it to just be a game day where we open the doors, we provide games, and we say just go, right? Our whole purpose has been, as you said, to come back to you, Damo, we had 12 family tickets. 3 families of which we gave away 3 free family tickets on our local radio station, which
say five,
in
say that
C91.3, but they are literally they are actually the second biggest radio station in Sydney. Like outside of the metro area, then you've got basically, it's like one of the biggest ones outside of that area. Those 3 families that came through, they legitimately had no real clue about board gaming in general. And we talked about it, that one of the biggest highlights for me was that there was obviously this one family who they won the free ticket and they rocked up just because they had it. And at one point, I taught them a few games and they seemed to be enjoying themselves. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't know how they're feeling about it. And they left for lunch. And I said to the boys, okay, if they're ever going to leave, this is the point that they're going to go. They're going to go like, we've got lunchtime. We don't need to go back. We have free tickets, whatever. They came back. And not only come back, they came back for like another 3 hours. And I was like, that was, I think, the biggest testament to us. That and the fact that we also had some of the biggest clock tower tape run things that was like, we had 4 games going at once to the point where we legitimately had to move tables around. And the other thing, Damo, is that you said, which is, I'm the kind of, anyone who knows me knows I'm the data nerd of the group. Like, I love a spreadsheet and figuring out the data and where we did good and all that stuff. And the one thing that I noted, which is between the last event and this event, we had 2 tables of clock tower going with about 5 tables of board gaming going at about 7:30 in our last event. Not too bad. Still had about 50 people there going through the night. In this event, we had 4 full games of clock tower going and 9 gaming tables of about 3 to 4 people on average. So about 70 people at 9:30 we only had an hour left, and we still only hadn't cleared out half of the room yet at that point, and it was massive. So anyway, look,
there were people scrambling to borrow more games when we were trying to close it down because the venue was going to kick us out.
Absolutely. And look, I don't want to harp on this too much longer because we know that we've got other stuff that we want to capture, but we have missed talking about this and talking to you, our lovely audience. We did have a massive influx of people who checked out our top 10 list before the New Year's as well. So if you are new here, we are also making a scramble for 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. So we are currently at 392 as kind of a recording, but our goal this year is to get to 1,000. So if you're enjoying it, make sure you click the like and subscribe button. Now,
tell your friends.
After Sydney's family game day 2 weeks later, we all then road tripped, and by we all, unfortunately, Leo was not the only one who didn't go with it. But Damien, myself, and Ralph, we went down there as well as Joel. We all went down to CanCon for 2 days for Australia's biggest one, and this was my first CanCon experience. Everyone had talked it up, and they are a big, multi-expo hall, tabletop gaming, expo, with, let me rephrase that. A tabletop gaming, like competitive gaming scene going over through multiple expo halls, as well as a massive games library and public board gaming area, which we kind of posted up in for the whole day. We got in the car at 6 a.m. in the morning to drive down to Canberra, but get there by about 8 o'clock, which we did, which was great. And then we gamed all night, all day and all night. We started gaming at about 9 o'clock. We finished our last game at about 11:30 that night.
Yeah,
it was
about 11:30.
Oh, come on, you could have pushed it a bit.
Well, to be fair, so we actually gamed up until about 7 o'clock. We went and got some Thai food for dinner, then went back to our local accommodation, and then we played another game.
And I will say, amazing. The reason why I didn't quite make it to the midnight mark and beyond is because I didn't go from our game day to CanCon. So our game day to CanCon was a 2-week break.
Yeah.
Within, I think it was like 36 hours after packing up after our game day, I jumped in the car and then drove to Queensland.
For a family holiday.
Which for our global viewers is quite the distance.
So
14 hours.
Yeah, so give or take, it's about 14 hours of driving all up.
Yeah.
So I did that and then drove back 2 days before CanCon, and then emptied the car, cleaned it, and then packed it again to then go to Canberra. So it was a lot of driving, but it was great. So we got to CanCon. We did our usual thing of walking around, checking out some of the stalls, trying to stay away from the madness, because it is madness on day one.
Oh my God, I could not believe you were like, yeah, it's mad. There are people everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, I know that it's a con. There are people literally
everywhere.
There's a second world, which I call it. It's basically a secondhand market where we talked to the organizer and they said they had like close to 20,000 secondhand items, not just board games, but tabletop things, like everything. But it literally is, you walk in there and people selling things and look, just shelves upon shelves of secondhand goods going on as well, which is
and
you were right,
as well as like the main markers by Good Games and other providers as well. So that was madness, but we started playing games and that was great. And then that typically peters out throughout the day, except not this year. CanCon this year had more people there than what I've ever seen before. This is my third CanCon. I heard they had 400 board gaming tables there.
It would have been close to it.
Believe it. It was the biggest setup I had seen. They were adding more tables when we got there.
It was and it filled up by the end, like by about 1 o'clock that day. It was full. We were sitting around all these tables playing games, and I was like, oh, maybe it'll feel a bit squeaky. And at some point, I'm like, oh no, like we're like not right on top of each other, but like there was a lot of people around, and we're like, all right, no problems.
In terms of games played, we played Mistborn. We played Dead Reckoning.
We did play Dead Reckoning.
We played... Well, I did, and I got to watch you guys play Dead Reckoning because I was playing a different game.
Hansa Teutonica.
Played Hansa Teutonica. Played Dune Imperium Uprising. Always amazing.
I got to play Station 13, Space Station 13. We played.
No, it wasn't. It's Station 4.
So Station 4. It's Space Station.
It's
sorry.
based on Space
Station 13. We also got to play Ralph bought, and then he wanted to play Last Light, which we played, which is a 4X in 2 hours, which we're not going to talk about in this podcast, but my God, we're going to talk about that on another podcast.
And then we played City on the Big Shoulders.
And that was our last game. So James had bought City of Big Shoulders, or as I call it, Pig Shoulders, which is basically take an 18xx train game, but remove the trains and put in a cutthroat worker placement sort of game. So a game of efficiency and making companies and selling shares. And I cannot believe it. I beat James and Damien at an economic game. I won. It never happens. And I got it in this game. I was like, yes. Anyway, but that was great. So we're not going to talk about that game, though. And then I will say at the end of the second day, the games really start coming down in price. So not only do the secondhand market, does everyone have to put in a day 1 price, a day 2 price, and a day 3 price. They can be the same price if you want, but generally people put them in descending order so that you can then get people are looking for the best deal. But Good Games was doing it as well. And so I hadn't bought any games. I'm like, man, I don't feel like I bought anything. What's going on? And the reason I haven't is because we had the Sydney no shipping cost trade in Sydney, another one, an auction that happened in early January. So I just bought new games. But then I was like, on the end of the last day, I'm like, I need to buy something. And they had Fayum, the Freeman Freese game, which was literally $20, brand new and shrink. And James is like, I already own the game and I'm nearly tempted to buy it again.
I almost bought a second copy just to sell it because I already own the game.
So I'm like, okay, I'll take that. And then I bought a game called Monolith, which was $10. And then I bought our gateway game of the week, which was Sonora, which is also $10. I'm not going to talk about that though, because we're going to skip straight out of CanCon because we could keep talking about this a while, but we want to talk about the game that arguably has been the most played over this holiday period, especially at Sydney's Family Game Day. It was the most taught game, and it was one of the most requested games that we played at CanCon, and that is Mistborn, the deck building game based on Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn thing. Now, I want to point out that this is a deck building game similar to Dominion or those kind of games, but because it has that Mistborn the IP, everyone wanted to have it. If you know it, everyone's like, I got to play this, whatever that is. I will say I'm currently just about to finish the book 3, so the ending of Saga 1. I'm about to finish that. So I'm like, this was fresh in my mind at the time as well. But let's move on to Mistborn, the deck building game. Damien, I'm going to pass this to you, and you can take us through the basic overview of Mistborn.
So Mistborn was a game that was given to me as a gift last year. So very massive thanks to some close friends of mine who gave that to me for my birthday. And it's like Nee said, Mistborn is a deck builder, and it really is in many ways a reskin of Dominion. You're doing a lot of the similar things where you start off with a very, very, very basic set of cards. Most of the cards are funding cards or bronze coins, as per Dominion. And you use those to then purchase other cards from the market. You build up the quality of your deck, which allows you to do more things. The things that you're doing in this game are you're either attacking your opponents. So there is like this targeting system, which is similar to King of Tokyo, where one person has the target. It means everyone wails on this one person. But when that person attacks, they get to attack everyone at the same time.
So hang on. So this is competitive game.
It can be a competitive game. It can also be a co-op game.
Well, how do you decide that?
You do it at the start.
You do it at the start of the game.
Okay. So it has the option.
So yeah, I'll take a step back. So competitively, you're attacking each other. If you're playing co-op, what you were doing is you actually have the Lord Ruler in the middle. Lord Ruler starts with a set amount of health, and everyone works together to try and defeat the Lord Ruler. And after everyone's turn, Lord Ruler will then take an action, and the action is just a deck of cards. You flip the top card, and depending on a certain situation, something happens, and then you eliminate certain cards from the market, and then refresh the market. It's pretty straightforward, actually. It's pretty lightweight, but competitive is where it's at. Competitive where it's fun. Really good.
If you like these games, you want to be playing it.
Yeah. So like I said, you can attack each other, or there are these 3 missions, and the other way you can win is you get to the top of all 3 mission tracks. First person who does that wins. Finally, there is a third way, which is much harder, is you need to be able to purchase this particular card, which is
ATM card.
It uses ATM. The name of the card will come to me, but regardless, it is
not the bank type of ATM.
No, ATM, ATIUM.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
I should know this. I've recently read.
Yeah. So, I think it's called the Conquest card, if I remember right. But to be able to win, you need to be able to play the card and play the card with 4 ATM at the same time. And the reason why that is exceptionally difficult to do is because there are so few ways to get ATM in the game. Now,
mimicking the books.
Yes.
Well,
atium is the element.
It's
That's
the
really
rare
hard to find.
element.
The rare element.
That's right,
Okay.
yes.
not
So-
one of the 16 metals. It's its own.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
Yeah.
So the game is basically based within the Mistborn universe by Sanderson. And-
Cosmere universe, or whatever they're calling
Yes.
it now, isn't it? Which is-
But the great hook in this game isn't just the IP. Yeah, everything I've explained so far sounds like standard deck builder Dominion style. So if anyone's asking, well, why would I play this over Dominion? I said it's because of the way the resourcing is handled. The resourcing in this game is very, very cool. So in the Mistborn universe, you have the Mistborn. These are people that they have magical abilities. Elementers. And typically most of them can only burn one element. Now I'll come back to that, to burning an element. Some, the Mistborn, they can burn all 8 elements. In this game, what you have is 8 different metals or 8 different elements in front of you. And on your turn, in order for you to activate a card, not only do you need to play it, but the card will have the picture of an element in front of you. So you'll take the element off your board and you'll put it on there and you'll say, I'm going to burn this element. Now, at the beginning of the game, you can only burn one element at a time.
Yeah.
However, you can also flare elements. And again, this is straight from the book. The difference between burning and flaring in the book is burning typically it means that the element is available over a long time. Whereas flaring is you use up the whole element in one go for a powerful ability. That is mimicked in the game brilliantly. And mechanically, the difference is that when you burn an element, to play a card, you then
it becomes available.
It's
next
available
turn
next turn. However,
Right.
if you
flare it,
it's
gone.
it's
a while.
gone. It's gone until you can refresh it. And the way you refresh it is by discarding a card of the same type,
which is basically the equivalent of drinking a vial of that metal.
And
that's
to-
how they refill their metals.
and to really the great sort of thematic tie-in in that is that when you tap cards or play them sideways, there's a picture of a vial with the element on there. The game has so many different ways you could play and you can interact with the elements on your board, as well as using other cards, because again, as I mentioned, there are vials on the sides of the cards. What that means is that you can then play cards underneath other cards to essentially replace those elements. So granted, I said you can only burn one element on a turn, but let's say I want to burn pewter and I've got 3 pewter cards. I can play one pewter card, burn my pewter element, put down the other pewter card and say, I'm going to activate this card by basically discarding this other pewter card that I have in my hands.
Are all and they are represented by vials. So the
That's
idea
right.
of like, hey, I'm refilling my pewter stores so that I can use it immediately.
But the trade-off is you cannot use that card for its other.
Exactly
Yes.
right. Exactly right. And you basically on your turn you are doing this. The other thing I really like about the game is, so let's say in Dominion you have your action phase and you have your buy phase, and that's always how it is. In Clank, it's very much the same thing as well. You have your you'll have your movement, your action, so on and so forth, and then you buy from the market. In Mistborn, it's a little bit different. In Mistborn, the only thing that is set is a damage phase. So damage phase happens at the end of your turn. That's where you calculate how much damage you're doing all up. What I really like about the game is that you can basically stack your actions in any order you like, however you feel is most efficient for you. So you can have these huge turns where you could play a card, which will then trigger a different card, because one thing I haven't mentioned yet is you have companions, and your companions are often triggered based on certain elements. So again, going back to my previous example, if my character was Vin, and Vin is triggered when you burn pewter element, pewter in general.
Yeah.
And then let's say I had another companion, which was also triggered when I burned pewter. If I played the pewter card, I burned pewter, all of a sudden I'm triggering Vin's ability, I'm triggering his other companion's ability, and so they could then give me more resources, which will then allow me to purchase more things from the market. And then if I have another ability which says the moment you purchase a card, you can use its top ability, I can then use the top ability of that card, and your turns can really, really stack. And typically this happens throughout the game, so much so that on your first turn, you'll play a card, maybe flare another metal, and away you go. By your 8th and 9th turn, you're playing a ton of different cards. You're doing a bunch of different things.
You can burn like 4 or 5 different metals.
Yeah,
and
it's brilliant.
Yeah,
so good.
Sounds super satisfying.
It's
You can
great,
stack
yeah.
those combos.
It is one of my favorite thematic games to come out in at least the last couple of years. I'm very much like, so as I said, I'm currently reading the Mistborn. It's my first time reading through it. I'm listening to the audiobook, so I'm enjoying that. And I will say the thematic tie-ins of this game are first and foremost brilliant. Now, for anyone wondering, it is kind of primarily based on book 1. Okay, so we're not going to be like necessarily spoiling anything about the actual book series or anything like that. But the game itself has a lot of thematic tie-ins. Like the first 4 people that you can play as are Vin, Kelsier, Shan, and Marsh. Now, if you know who those characters are, you know that those 4 characters all have meaning in the book 1, and they're all things that you need to worry about. As Damo said, that they're all characters, and the thematic tie-in of like the way that the metal system works is great because in the universe, the way that it kind of works is that each metal has a pair, right? So, for example, one of the iconic things is that Alamancers are known for being able to push and pull on metal. So, like if they have a pouch of coins, they put a coin on the floor, they push on it, and because the coin can't go anywhere, it shoots them up the other way, right? And they can also then pull on metal. So, for example, kind of like Spider-Man, but theoretically you could grab that same coin, use your pulling, burning the steel and iron, which are the 2 ones that allow you to do pushing and pulling. You could pull the coin back to you. But again, it's all like, so pewter, for example, makes your body go really strong. You become very strong, but then its opposite is tin, means that instead of you becoming physically strong, you become mentally more aware. You become mentally more checked in. You got things like bronze, which allows you to see everything, but then copper allows you to hide yourself from everyone, right? So thematically, all these cards that you are getting as well also help you with that. Like you could go, I'm just going to go a massive pewter deck, and basically you're signaling to everyone, I'm about to start swinging really hard and you all need to be very careful. Whereas I was playing a bit of a bronze deck, which is more of a, I'm going to hide myself here and heal myself and out stamina everyone in this game. If you are a fan of the Mistborn series, even if you've never really played a deck builder before, this will make 100% sense to you. This is, I think, one of the most perfect ways that I think you could introduce someone to a deck building concept if they've never played it, but they like Mistborn. That's how good the thematic tie-in is. And I will also say a deck building game is perfect for this particular game as well, because I don't know I can't remember if you mentioned it, Damo, but you level up your characters. So not only so you said you only start burning 1 metal, but one thing that he didn't mention is that at the beginning of every turn, you move a little marker up the board, which is you signal getting stronger. You're becoming more with the mist. You understand how to use your stuff. You can start burning more metals. You have more actions. Blah, blah, blah. There are cards that you can do to actually force your level up quicker, which is kind of what I did. So I was 2 turns ahead of everyone because I spent some cards getting things so that I could level up faster. I could burn more metals and start swinging harder, quicker, right? But then I forewent maybe some cards that gave me good combos early on. I didn't know if that was the right thing to do, but that was the choice I had to make. And the game, which you mentioned, the companions, I think what this has done, so it's the game is designed by John DeClaire, one of my favorite designers at the moment. He designed Dead Reckoning, which we kind of talked about as well, and a whole Space-based, a whole bunch of other games. I think that he has taken the best mechanics from all other deck building games and put them in here seamlessly. So, for example, the companions was something that I know it's not new, but it was basically Star Realms and Star Wars, the deck building game. The companions, like, they're basically things that sit off to the side, but you have to go through your companions before you can get to me now. And so they cycle through your deck, but they give you special abilities. He's taken that. He's taken the the card system, the resource management system, which is different to Dominion, where it's just like your only management is how many actions you have. That's your only management. Whereas this one's like, no, you're going to have to figure out, do you want to buy, like in Star Wars deck building game, if you want to buy Force points or Sith points, you need to figure that out. Go rinse and repeat, figure out what you're going to do. I think this is a game that I don't want to say it's better than Dominion, but I certainly think it has a place where I think, look, it's better than base Dominion. I'll give it that, right? But it is certainly a game that I would feel more comfortable teaching people this game and it is a game that will naturally draw people into playing it if they know Mistborn. And that's what we found at Sydney's Family Game Day.
Yeah.
We had people who just went, that's Mistborn. I would just want to play that. And
I think that's almost like the epitome of a gateway game when the theme is so strong that it can pull you into something that you would otherwise not want to play.
100%.
Which is an amazing quality.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to comment on is, I don't know if it's just me, but it's felt like deck builders of the pure kind, like a Dominion, kind of went out of style for a while, and instead deck building became a commoditized like part of games where it wasn't the main concept, but it was just one other element of it. Like
Great Western Trail.
Or we talked about a few
Clank,
others before as well.
yeah.
Clank,
Dune.
exactly. Dune. But maybe, I don't know, and from what you've described, this is like really going back to the core of how do we get a deck building game to
I
be
agree.
awesome as
Yeah,
possible.
like it takes deck building back to where deck building was a race and it was about efficiency, and then luck, where the luck is the draw of the cards.
Luck mitigation. Sorry, is the word I'm thinking.
So and how you thin out your deck, how you manage all that sort of stuff. You know, like it brings a lot of that back. The last thing I'll say about the game is I agree with everything you said, Nee. Like I think it is definitely one of the better deck builders I've played in a very, very long time. We're a pure deck builder. I prefer it over base Dominion. Dominion has a hell of a lot of pedigree about it. So, and the thing is, Dominion's still here. So I'd never say a game is better than Dominion, because that's a game has to be around for 20 years for me to be able to say it's better than Dominion. But what I will say is I truly believe the way the game is set up, and even by the number of just available inserts in the base box, there will be expansions coming for the game.
Oh, 100%.
I really think there will be ones for the other books as well.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, you can't fault Dominion. Like,
No.
it's been around for a long time. But I will say that, and I have Dominion, and I have a lot of the expansions, and I love it. But it hardly makes it to the table these days. And part of it, I think, is it's quite dry. And like, again, going back to, the thematic side of things, with something like Mistborn, I could see the pull to go back into that universe and to want to be in that universe more.
And when we say dry, we kind of mean lack of theme.
Yes.
Like, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, not dry as in the rules or the mechanics
we're just
of the
talking
game.
about, like, we love it because we love the mechanics of the game and we love what the game provides, but I totally understand. It's like games like Hans and Teutonica. I love that game, but I highly understand that if you're not a board gamer, you'll never look at that game and go, why is that fun?
Yeah, going back to the gateway game.
Exactly right. Yeah. They will look at Mistborn and go, I know Mistborn, and I like that. I would love to give that a go. And I will say my only couple of gripes about this, which is, one, it does have player elimination. However, I will say, because it does have player elimination, but in saying that, again, it has the King of Tokyo thing, which is as soon as you get hit, you are allowed to give that bad boy away, right? So if you don't really want to play like you're playing competitive, but if you don't want to play hit and be eliminated from the game, you can get rid of it very quickly. In saying that, though, this is a game where most of the time it's going to be piling on the person who's on first. You're not going to be like going, oh, well, let's just pile on Damien because he's coming last. It's like, no, everyone's going to go, no, Leo is literally winning. We need to either...
But is that the game trying to balance itself, essentially?
Yes, 100% it is. And this is my second gripe, which is it's only a little thing and it's part of the game, but it is because there are two different ways in which you can win the game, which is you can either knock people out, there's the third way of the game, or the missions. Generally what will happen is that someone will go big one way and then everyone else just goes the other. And it can feel like if you don't get any of the card, and this is my only other problem with deck building games like Star Wars The Deck Builder and Mistborn, which is when you have a very limited shop, whereas Dominion just has, here are all the cards we're playing with, you figure out what you want. Whereas in these games, it's very like, there were 4 instances I remember vividly of a card came out and 2 people went, I need that card. The third person just goes, yoink, takes it, and everyone goes, damn it, right? And so now it's like, when you only have a shop of 6 cards, I get it. It's kind of limits your options and your scope a little bit. But at the same point in time, it makes you feel when you see the card that you're like, this will make my hand great and my deck great, and you never even get a chance to get it. That can just feel really bad. But
I mean, that's common in most, like, again, going back to Clank, Dune, they all have that same and limited market mechanics.
And that's that is a common problem with every single deck builder. In fact, I was talking about this with a friend of mine after we played the game again at his house, where we were trying to come up with different house rules and how you could rotate the market. And I don't know if there is a right answer, but I will say I'm hoping that the expansion introduces more cards, which helps help solve that problem. Typically, Dominion did that.
Yeah.
Which I think what are the larger cards in Dominion called?
Oh, not the prosperity cards, the like the house, the
Empire?
duchies, and
No.
the what's
I don't know what they're called, but essentially they're like tiles more than cards. And you
Oh,
can purchase
yeah,
those as
yeah.
well. They help because they give you different ways to win, but they also
Yes.
give you different ways to improve your income or improve or manipulate the card market and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, look, I'm hoping that Mistborn comes up or John D. Clare or whoever designs the any expansions. Again, I'm confident there will be expansions with this game.
100%.
With that universe, that
yeah.
IP.
So I'm hoping that they find ways to basically improve the balance of the market, basically.
Look, and I will say, like, that's not really on the game. It's more about my gripe of the game because, like, I would prefer having a market that I have all the options and I can do what I want to do, whereas not being limited by I happen to buy a card and then I have to wait 3 people's turn and that card was drawn out of my but that's a very little thing on my particular end. But
we'll go like just last thing to say on that. So a really good example of a game that actually does fix it is Fayum. So I know you haven't played it yet.
I'm going to.
You're going to. So Fayum has a market very similar to Concordia.
Yep.
So it's a very, very wide card market.
Yes.
But the way it works is you can purchase that card at the back of the market. Go to town. It's going to cost you a fortune, though.
Yep.
You got to wait till it comes.
Like,
and I like that idea. I think that would be great.
The other one that fixes potentially is Quest for Eldorado.
Yeah.
Which very simply just says, here's 3 copies of every card.
Yeah.
Right? And
Once
they're all
it's born,
available,
they got the
except
next
there's
one.
some that are above the fold.
That's right.
And once you buy if you want to buy one as an empty slot, you bring them in. And now
That's right.
That could be.
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is that games have approached this problem in different ways, and there are solutions out there. I'm just hoping that designers will come up with something in a future expansion.
I know we finished with the gripe there, but I do want to say though, I absolutely did really love this game.
I'm
really
liked
this
it.
game.
You guys have
I'm
really
keen to
sold
play it
it.
again. We did play it. I've only played it at 4. I don't think it would probably be as much of a gripe at 2. If you played a head-to-head match,
Yes.
I don't think it would be as much of a problem at all. But at 4, it certainly does feel bad when that
and
happens.
it scales really well. So I played it a bunch at 2. I played it a bunch at 3. I played it a bunch at 4. I've played the game. I have to go back through my stats. I'm pretty sure it's 6 times already this year. And it just scales really, really well. Solo is also really good. It's really light solo, really simple.
In fact, it also has a co-op mode. So if you have people that don't want to hit each other, you can work together, and maybe that solves it as well. Because you can be like, we're going to work together and go from it there.
The biggest gripe I have with the game is that it's sold out everywhere. It's impossible to find. At the moment.
Probably for a good reason. I do think it's probably one of the best pure deck building games to come out in a while. So anyway, that was a Mistborn, the deck building game, which came out towards the end of last year, designed by John DeClaire, published by Lucky Duck Games. There's 19 different artists who worked on this game, so I'm not going to read them all out loud, but they have done a great job. It does look fantastic. The game looks great. It also looks great. It has very nice table presence.
They've done well with the IP.
Absolutely, they have. Anyway, speaking of table presence, I do want to. We're going to shift now to our final game of the week this week, which is our gateway game of the week, which is Sonora. This is a game which came across my eyesight when I walked through the Good Game stall at CanCon on the first day. And I refused to buy anything on the first day because everyone said, no, wait, because all the deals come out at least at the end towards day 2.
Unless you know people.
Unless you know people in which you can get it. So I decided to hold on Sonora because the way that the box described it, which was the world's first flick and write, right? And I was like, all right, you have my interest, okay? I'm like, because I love games like Armstrong Clever, like Welcome to, these roll and write sorts of games, and Welcome to being the first flip and write. So when I saw flick and write, I'm like, okay, what is going on here? And then on day 2, they brought the price down to $10, and I immediately jumped on it. I'm like, okay, no problems, I'm going to grab this. Even if I don't like it, I think $10 is worth it. Spoiler alert, I kind of really like this game. So we played this game.
Best $10 you ever spent.
It's well, I wouldn't say the best 10, but it's definitely up there. This is game. So it was designed by Rob Newton, and the art is done by Tom Goyen and Michael Parler, and it is published by Pandasaurus Games. So the way that this game works, so Sonora is, the theme of it is basically a desert theme. I believe the Sonora Desert is somewhere in the world, I believe.
I'll take your word for it.
I'm assuming, but when I say this is a flick and write, the way that this game takes place very similar to a roll and write, where each player is given an identical sheet. In this particular instance, ours is like a square piece of paper with whiteboard, and we have whiteboard markers. All right, so we are going to be filling in all of our spaces in these 4 separate quadrants. But before we get to that, it's a flick game. So if you've played Crokinole or dexterity games like Crokinole, Carom, all these sorts of games, the way that it works is that we have this little square board in front of us, and we are each given 5 discs, numbered from 1 to 5. And in the flick phase, we go around the circle, flicking these discs into the center board, a la Crokinole and this other thing. Depending on where the discs land at the end of the flick phase, that determines what you are allowed to fill in going into the second phase, a la flick and fill. So, well, okay, Anthony, what the hell is going on here, right? Well, okay, the 4 sections they're all desert themed. So the first one is kind of is called there's the lizard, there's the fox, there's the owl, and there's the desert rat, the desert bunny, the hare, right? So the way that works is the lizard quadrant. This is the only one that is directly confrontational with each other. The way that it works is that you total up all of the sum of all your discs that are in that quadrant, and then you get to check off that many boxes in the lizard, the lizard section. And depending on, there are 8 different sections in there. One 5 boxes, 1 7, 9, 11, working its way up all the way up to 22. And if you complete a section first, you get the major bonus point, which is the biggest one was 35 points, which is pretty big. Pretty big amount of points. But then the reason why this is the only section that's directly competitive is because then, say, if Leo had the second amount of most, he gets to then check his boxes second, followed by Damien, right? Other than that, there are 3 other sections where once we've done our first competitive section, you literally all just go basically chuck your head straight down and start crossing off your other sections, which are, if you've played Garnshon Clever, these will all be very, very familiar to you. Yep. So, for example, the second section, which is the fox, basically, depending on, you don't sum up your discs. Each number that you have in that fox quadrant basically says, hey, if you have the number 5 in there, do the 5 shape. And you have 5 tetrominoes. A 4 shape is a bit smaller, 3 shape, 2 shape, 1 shape, right? Then you are basically putting those shapes on the board, trying to cover icons.
That bit actually felt very similar to a game called Silver and Gold.
Yes.
Yeah, which has the same tetromino shapes, and you're trying to go over certain things.
Yeah, so if you know the tetromino piece, a 5 tetromino piece looks like a C or a U, depending on it. The 4 is the classic, lightning bolt piece. The 3 is the little right angle, 2 is a straight line, and 1 is obviously just a single dot. So you're trying to, cover around all of these cactuses, and by doing so you get points for every cactus that you uncover. But then you also have bonus squares, so when you immediately cover a bonus square, you immediately go to that quadrant and do the thing that you're supposed to be doing, right? Very combo-esque. It's hey, I did this, and so I'm going to go here, put that shape here, which gives me the bonus tile, which allows me to go to that quadrant. The third quadrant is the owl, where it's basically the owl is stalking its prey through the cracks in the river, on the riverbed. And basically, it's, for every number that you're going to work your way down this little trail and leave a little circle. And whatever is you've circled, that is your bonus points at the end of the game. Damo got big points by working his way right down to the end of a few trails, getting 10 points, not including all the points that he got along the way of it. So you can get big points. Again, if you stop on a little spot that has a bonus thing, do the bonus immediately. And those bonuses can be things like swapping discs, having a free flick later in the game, putting a free shape in the fox section. It could be using the owl, any number between 1 and 5, to put it down the crev. And then the 4th section, and this is the one which is called the wetlands, and this is where the 2 sections are you take the individual discs and you do stuff with them. The other 2 being you sum the dice. The same thing with the wetlands. Sum all of your dice and you color in these little nodes, making little triangles. And everything that you're able to successfully enclose, you get points.
Yeah.
Very similar. And then when you do it, if you have a bonus thing, you get to use that bonus immediately. And for every little remainder that you can't use in the wetlands, you can check off little things to give you more bonuses potentially in the end. The game is played over, it has a short, a normal, and a long game. The short game is 5 rounds, which we played before we did this podcast. The usual is 6. You can play a long game at 7, but I don't think you need to do it at 7. I think 6 would actually be. I think 6 is right in the sweet spot. Guys, I said to you we're going to play Sonora tonight, and you rocked up and you looked at this thing and went, all right, but I'd love to hear what you thought of these games.
I liked it a lot. I like that it has the 2 sides to it. I think the flicking part is really fun from a take that, trying to get into the best spot. trying to keep an eye on what everyone else is doing, try to bump people off the thing that they're after and put yourself closer to the thing that you want. Like that's the kind of stuff that sort of emerged as we played more and more rounds. And that bit was really fun. And the dexterity part, I mean, maybe not everyone will like the dexterity part, but I enjoyed that. I thought that was really fun and like a nice player interaction in that phase. And then you move on to the individual puzzle phase of it, where you're trying to assign all your things into your quadrants. And I enjoyed that part too, maybe because I had in my mind I was a bit anchored to something like Gunshot Clever. I'm not sure whether it matches the heights of that personal puzzle for me yet. Maybe playing it a few more times will maybe see if I unlock more
I'll admit,
enjoyment out of that part.
Gunshot Clever is a lot simpler to understand if I do this, I immediately cross that, which allows me to cross that, which allows me to get that, which allows me to do this. Whereas that puzzle doesn't immediately show itself in
I didn't have as many of those moments in Sonora, but again, it was the first time playing. I'm sure if you played it more, you'd kind of get a sense of where to go and how to make the most of the combos. There's definitely a lot of combos to be had. But I think maybe one way to put it is the puzzles in Sonora, they don't sort of guide you to doing certain things. It's very open. It's very open-ended. Where you go is really up to you, and I think you have to play a few times to get a sense of where your strategy will be.
Yeah, I agree. Like I liked the game. In terms of like flicking rights, rolling rights, it does the one thing that I didn't like about Welcome to. Now, I think I'm the only one on the podcast who doesn't like Welcome to.
It's a 6.5 out of 10 for me. I enjoy it
because
I enjoy it, but it's not always my first one to go to.
The issue I have with it is that it's very, very easy to just play the game by copying the person on your right.
Yeah.
Whereas other roll and rights, because you're physically taking the dice, you can't because the dice is gone. So Gunstrong Clever or Fleet Dice Game or Three Sisters again, which is sort of like the sister game to Fleet the Dice Game. They all have that very similar thing where you have, because you're physically taking a dice
like a mini draft.
It means that
the other person has to do something else.
Exactly right. Yes. Yeah, unless you're just rolling the same dice over and over and over, which is unlikely. People have to go on different journeys in this game. The flicking in Sonora is where it's at. The first thing I said at the end of the game was that I'd love to play this at 4, because the way you mitigate that, like someone taking the dice, and you can hate draft in these games. The way you do that here is that you just flick someone's disc out of the way, and then ideally,
Leo in the very first
ideally, what you're trying to do is that you're doing the same thing that you do in Crocodile or Karam, where you want to flick the discs so that you still gain the benefit while eliminating your opponent at the same time. So there is a lot of that in there. Even though the board is quite small, I still found there was a little bit of that going on, which is why I think at 4 it'd be great, because it would just be a lot more of that going on. But the actual right part, I agree. I didn't see the benefit of the bonuses straight away. I do want to play it again. I do want to see if I'm wrong there. But for instance, the track that you mentioned where I just went and got all the 10s, I didn't get a single bonus along the way, because I'm looking at the board going, why do I want the bonus when I can just get 10 points? And
that's right. Yeah, what's the right trade-off to make? It's hard to know.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do want to play the game again, but I wasn't immediately seeing that thing in Gunstrong Clever, which resulted in me like a rabbit holing on the game until I finally cracked 300.
Yeah.
Which took months.
Still haven't.
By the way. I did it.
That's amazing.
I'm close. I'm at 280.
I think 279 was my highest.
Yeah. 308 is the highest, is where I've gotten to, and it took months of months. But it's because it's understanding the bonuses. And getting the bonuses is a lot more evident in Gunstrong Clever, because you almost can't do anything without resulting in a bonus.
Yes. Yeah. Which is what I was saying with this one. It's a lot more open, and it's a bit harder to know.
And so this was how I agree with you as well. And I agree that I'd actually want to play this at 4. I've currently played it at 2, which was actually kind of fun playing with my brother, which was head to head. Played 3 with you two gentlemen, and I actually haven't played it at 4 yet. But I think I'd love to play this at 4. I do think as well, though, so one of the rules is that you do shoot 2 discs on your turn. I actually think at 4, I think it'd be much funnier just to shoot one at a time. Because it's just like, so the first player rotates every single time. We haven't also mentioned that on the game board, there are a few bonus squares.
Yep.
And so, for example, inside of the lizard square, there's a bonus bunny. So, for example, if you happen to land in that, even if you're touching it, you then get that bonus for that side as well. Right now, we didn't play that rule correctly when we played the game, but there is a chance of like, hey, you're touching the bonus with your 5. That's 10 points towards that one as well, which is, and they're on the opposite side of each other.
Yeah,
now,
clever.
I will say that in our game, I was the guy who was trying to do a lot of bonuses. I was playing with the wetlands and the little fox area, so I was putting my shapes trying to get bonuses. There was one turn where I went, well, I get to do this, I get to do that, and I got to do this. I will say in a short game, you're probably right. A short game probably doesn't favor the bonuses because you don't have enough time to set up. Whereas I did need that extra turn, which I never got, that I think I would have been able to get a lot more points had I had that one last turn. But I also do agree that this game does have the ability, so you can't hate draft in this game, but you do really have the opportunity to stuff you over. Like Leo, for example, went first on his turn, and he went, well, I'm just the one right in front of me, I can put 5, and chucked his 5 into there and immediately realized, oh God, now they can literally go bang and knock my 5 out of there. And so you don't actually get to control where it goes at that point.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you can definitely hate flick because, you know, there could be a situation where you've arranged all your stuff perfectly, but someone in their last flick can just knock everything chaotically out of where you intended it to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the other thing you can do is that you can, and I did it once, and I did it in the final round, where you can sort of like almost control and correct.
Yes.
So for instance, obviously when you roll dice, and typically in a roll and write, you don't get to mitigate the dice roll. It just is what it is.
Well, you usually get some modifiers.
Maybe,
there,
yeah,
right?
but you usually have to earn them.
That's
okay?
right. Yes.
Whereas in a flicking game, especially a game where you have multiple like buttons or chips or tokens to flick, typically assuming one of your tokens are on the board, you can then use that as almost like a buffer point. Yeah. And I did that, and it's like I messed up one of my first flicks. It went in the wrong quadrant, so I thought, all right, well, I'm just going to aim for that to correct that. Lo and behold, I flicked, hit it, and then knocked it into the middle.
It was a good shot.
Which then allowed me to then just place it wherever I wanted. And it's like, hey, even better. So I really liked it. Like I like simple flicking dexterity games. I'm a massive fan of them. Is like does Sonora give you those kind of like crocodile vibes to some degree? Yeah,
yes,
it does. It really does. So I like that.
I also have this like image I've built in my head about how they came up with the game rules, where they went, I really like Crokinole, I really like Gunshot Clever. How can I like merge these two worlds together? And I think the inspired bit of the mechanics for me that I really appreciate is that each of the flick tokens has a different number from 1 to 5. So that adds yet another dimension to the strategy where you're trying to think, where do I want to put my high numbered tokens and where do I put my low? Because low doesn't necessarily mean bad. Like in one of the tracks where you've got the branching paths, as you get closer to the bottom, the lower numbers are actually better in a way because you can scoop up more big points before you get to the end.
Which is why when I said I flicked the disc into the wrong spot, I wanted that lower number to be in that quadrant, because when I looked down at my board, I went, no, I'm going to end up crossing out a really high number now. So no, I want that lower number in there.
Yes.
But the other side of it as well is that the game is a lot more tactical than other roll and writes, because if you basically send out your highest value token first up,
you're signaling what you want.
You're basically showing your hand straight away. So everyone's just going to go, oh, well, that token is not going to stay in that quadrant. I'm going to knock that out as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So you then wonder, well, do you lead with your lowest token and hope it's still around at the end? You know, stuff like that. So look, again, the flicking side of it, fantastic. I think it is great. I think it's well implemented. I definitely want to try it again to see if I can see other paths on the right side of it, and see if I can see if there is kind of like this whole sort of cascading bonus thing
and make it work.
And make it
I
work,
will say, so you won the game on 126
just purely chasing high numbers.
I will say Nick and I both crossed 150 when we did it in single player. Two player, right? So we both got to so I know that we didn't, and granted, we did 150 and we had the extra round, right? So we did one more round, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in this game, it can, like with 5 tokens, it can snowball really quickly into a couple of big bonuses. And I agree with you. I think this sits in this is a very, very perfect gateway / opener game, because we played it in about half an hour. Granted, we played 5 rounds, but you can just do that. They just say choose how many rounds you want to play, right? 5, 6, or 7, take your pick. But because it has that little flicking thing, you can just get everyone involved very quickly. Like, yes, I agree with you. It's a bit more convoluted than, say, Gunstrong Clever, which is very simple. Here's your 5 tracks, write a number, move to the next thing, rinse and repeat.
That's what makes it feel a little bit less gateway to me. It's just the convolutedness of understanding each of the quadrants.
And I agree as well, but I do feel like it's also balanced by the flick. Yes. Right, the fact that it's like, how do we select the numbers? Well, you just get to flick your disc into this board, and then we'll figure it out, right? And that immediately, as you said, draws you in.
Yes,
and I do think also Pandasaurus games. Can we just talk? Please put better quality whiteboard markers in your game. 3 of my 4 just crapped themselves. Please put better quality ones in it. I just can't. Please, can we do that? Anyway, I've got to say it. I'm definitely going to play it a lot more. I actually like it more than Welcome 2, just because Welcome 2 is more tactical in the sense of you're also playing the push your luck element of Welcome 2 of if I put my numbers here, I'm really banking on this so I can fill my street and do all that kind of stuff. But Welcome 2 is a very slower pace. It does have the ability of hey, I can literally just, so long as everyone can see my cards, I can have infinite amount of players playing the game with me, right? That's good. But whereas Sonora, I think, takes the novelty of the crocodile flicking at the beginning and then says, I actually think there's a decent game because whilst you can get in each other's way, and some people may go, but if I'm not a good flick, I'll never get the thing that I want. That's mitigated by what you said, Damo, and that's the reason why the game board is so small, because even if you just flick, you're probably, the furthest one away from you is not that far away that you can get it in there very easily.
Yeah, and it's worth also saying as well, there are no bad spots on the board.
No.
That's right.
Everything's positive. Yeah. So it's just a matter of whether or not the token that you flick goes into a quadrant that you wanted. That's fair. But there's never a bad decision. Whereas in games like Gone Strong Clever, you could end up with dead dice. Yes. Where you just especially at the end of the game, it's I've got this 5. It's a blue 5. What can I do with blue 5? Nothing. Well, there we go. I'm not cracking. That's it. I'm not cracking 300. This game.
Yeah.
Start again. And
absolutely. Yeah. Look, I think Sonora, if you get a chance to play it, I really do think it's worth it. Is it it's not a world eater. It's not a quote unquote great game, but I think it's a great family game.
I agree.
This is a game you get out at the start. Is it a perfect opener? This is one that you can get out, play for half an hour, get the kids involved. Okay, good. Move on to the next. And again, like you said, every time that you've played it, you're just I think there's something here, but I just want to make sure that the other tracks do work. Yeah. I do think they work. I would love to be able to do that again, and I think we should do that at the end of the podcast. What do you reckon?
Cool.
Well, not really. It's nearly 11 o'clock here in Australia, but we're going to do that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to bring us to the end of episode 69, our return, our first episode for season 4 of this year. We've got ourselves a very big year planned. We've got a lot coming up this year. We've made some changes as well. So just at the back end here, if you'll indulge me for 2 minutes, we've got a couple of things that we'd like to announce. So first and foremost, we're going to say that Leo, he's going to be taking care of a lot of our social media going forward as well, which we're super happy with. I've been taking on most of the duties, but Leo's come and said, "Nope, I love that. Let me take care of it." And he's also started working on some vertical short form, not horizontal. Yeah, some vertical short form content as well. So that's going to be coming your way as well. So we're excited about that. Ralph is also taking on now some video editing duties as well. So me and him will be working as a team to try and bring you some more content. Ralph is also doing some short form vertical content, as well as he wants to put his hand up to do some horizontal longer videos as well, such as he is going to be editing our blood. If it hasn't come out already, he's editing our Blood on the Clock Tower, Bad Moon Rising deep dive, the 4th video in our Blood on the Clock Tower series. So we're super excited about that. Damo is going to be continuing as a host. Hopefully you'll be here a lot more.
Purchasing games. That's all I do. I just buy the games.
He's the guy who got that. We've also got in the background, Joel is kind of basically working as our head honcho in terms of our live experience, I guess you could call him. He's been working very hard to get us into a different venue for Sydney's Family Game Day, because even though we can announce we are going to be changing a venue, we're not going to say where yet, but we think it's time that we nearly can expand the game day and probably look to go 200 plus people, and we think we'll be able to get there. So keep your eye on that. So Joel's been working on that in the background as well. And myself, I'll be taking a step back from a lot of things. So if you did not know, I was the editor-in-chief. I was social media manager. I've been doing a lot of things in the background to get this graphics designer, everything like that. And I finally have a cast of people around me that I feel like we can hand off to. I think we've got a really good team. So this year is a very big and a very exciting year. I think we've actually going to be writing down some of our big goals. And I've already mentioned the first big one, which is that we want to get to 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube by the end of the year. So if you are enjoying what you've heard, if you're listening on to the podcast on the audio form, head on over to www.youtube.com/@BGGateway. There you'll be able to find all of our video content. You'll be able to like, subscribe to the video as well as the channel. We are going to be going back through our archival footage as well. We're going to be going and splitting up some of our old podcasts to bring you individual game content as well on specific games. We'll be doing that. We also have a new series that we're in development on, and we're also doing so much more stuff that we're super excited for. Like, we haven't even crossed March yet, and we're already super excited about that. But I won't yammer on anymore because we're going to have to save it for next week when we come back for episode 70 of the Board Game Gateway podcast. But until then, I'd like to thank my special ghost, Mr. Leo. Ghosts. My special ghost. My special co-host, Mr. Leo and Mr. Damon. And until next time, guys, we'll see you there. Bye.
Bye.
See you.